Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the last webinar of 2024. To think that this is going to be the last one and that 2024 is almost behind us seems crazy, even though I was talking to our panelists about like what is left to be done in the days that will lead all of you to a vacation. I'll remind everyone that we do these series in conjunction with IC, or in our conference, Invest Canada, and our partners come to us with the support for the conference, but also a willingness to have conversations with our members throughout the years on topics that are interesting. Aujourd'hui, on a Investissement Québec, qui est un partenaire de CICIer depuis plusieurs années maintenant. This conversation is going to be in English, but I'm sure if you write a question in French, all our panelists are bilingual. They'll be able to answer in any language that you choose. I'll remind everyone that the Q&A button is at the bottom. Dany Belmonte from Investissement Québec will be your host today and your moderator, and you will be looking at your questions. This webinar is about Quebec, and Quebec as a place to invest, Quebec as a focus, a long-term view, institutions that are anchored in economic development and thinking strategically about that Quebec angle, Quebec assets, what is happening in the market. And you'll be joined by two GPs that are going to speak about their experience. So I'm going to pass over the floor to him because I think this is going to be a super interesting conversation. And I'll come back at the end to say goodbye and a few words of closing. So Dany, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you to the CVCA for offering us the opportunity to present Quebec's ecosystem and also to present Investissement Québec to this diverse audience. So good morning, everyone. So Quebec's fund management ecosystem stands out in Canada due to its unique blend of public-private partnerships, diverse manager landscapes, and resilience in economic cycles. Today, we'll explore the unique advantages that make Quebec a prime destination for investors and fund managers. My name is Dany Belmonte, and I'm a Senior Director in the Private Equity team at Investissement Québec. I'm currently focused on portfolio management and monitoring for our funds portfolio. I've been at IQ for the past 5 years, and I've been active in the funds market for the past 15 years, both on a global and local scene. Today, we'll delve deeper into how Quebec's ecosystem is shaping the future of fund management and how we compare to other regions in Canada. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. So here's our agenda for today. We'll briefly outline IQ's mission, its role in fostering economic development and how it supports businesses, and how initiatives are shaping the province's investment landscape, making it a thriving hub for innovation and growth. Then I'll discuss at a high level the province's unique landscape and how it has evolved over the years and how the collaboration between public and private investors played a key role in enabling investments. I'll go into the specific initiatives and strategies within our private equity program, highlighting the impact on backing and scaling businesses. After, we'll be joined by our panelists and explore the structural and strategic advantages that sets Quebec apart. Quebec's investment landscape is characterized by its diverse economy, abundant natural resources, and strategic focus on innovation. The province has, over the years, made important strides in sectors such as aerospace, information technology, biotechnology, and clean energy. IQ plays a pivotal role in the economic development of Quebec by actively advancing innovation within businesses, promoting entrepreneurship and business succession, and driving the growth of investments and exports. We support businesses of all sizes through tailored financial solutions and investments. The organization also provides companies with advisory services and various support measures, including innovation and technology. Furthermore, through Investissement Québec International, the organization assists businesses in export activities and leads efforts in attracting foreign talent and investments in the province. Here are some key indicators that illustrate the strength and reach of our organization. First, let's talk about our workforce. As of now, we proudly employ over 1,200 dedicated and mission-driven professionals. We also have established a robust network of 23 locations within Quebec, as this footprint allows us to connect deeply with our communities, understanding their needs and tailor our services accordingly. On the international stage, our operations span across 20 countries, enhancing our brand recognition, but also enabling us to tap into diverse markets and foster global partnerships that drive growth. IQ addresses the various business needs of local companies via two ranges of services, financing and support. Whether for innovation projects, increasing productivity or competitiveness, developing new markets or green transition, we offer personalized solutions to our clients. By design, our portfolio is diversified, including investments across private asset classes, financing products, and support. The different investment strategies are matched to market needs, and historically, we have supported over 6,500 companies, often acting as an institutional investor on behalf of the government. Our total AUM as of March of this year is $14.5 billion, 46% through our main portfolio and 54% on behalf of the government. Now, if we take a quick journey through the evolution of Quebec's venture capital ecosystem, the industry really took its stride in 2003. The tech bubble had just burst, forcing it to reassess and pivot, focusing more than ever on building a private capital industry that can play in the big leagues. First, by adopting the best practices from our neighbors down south, building networks, building the expertise, and then aiming to raise capital beyond just our public coffers. Second, seeking to cover the entire financing chains. No gaps, no weak links. As you can see on the graph, these factors led to the growth and maturity of the industry. And with the numbers of private active managers headquartered in Quebec rising from 4 at the beginning of 2004 to 29 by the end of 2023. When comparing Quebec's venture capital ecosystem to other Canadian hubs, several key catalysts stand out. Mainly, the composition of the limited partner base plays a crucial role in shaping each region's investment landscape. One key difference in Quebec is the historical and sustained support by government-backed institutions and programs like IQ and CDPQ, tax-advantaged funds like FSTQ, Fondation, and financial institutions like Desjardins and National Bank, and even the federal government getting in on the action. Initially, 70% of commitments came from public sources. Over time, the industry diversified its capital base, reducing public funding to 30% since 2019. While the relative weight of public and parapublic funding has declined as the industry matured, these sources still provide significant support, specifically for early-stage investments. Another important factor is Quebec's venture capital ecosystem is the diverse array of fund managers employing various business models, enhancing its dynamism and competitiveness. This diversity can be categorized into three main groups. Firms with an international focus, firms like Inovia Capital or White Star Capital exemplify this category, leveraging their global networks and expertise to support portfolio companies in expanding beyond local markets. Pan-Canadian firms with strong local roots, firms like Brightspark and Panache, who operate on a national scale while maintaining deep connections to Quebec's business community. They play a crucial role in bridging local innovations with Canada-wide opportunity. And then local focused emerging managers. While Quebec is experiencing a growing cohort of new firms, IQ is proud to play a capital role in the promoting of a new generation of fund managers, bringing fresh perspectives and strategies to the ecosystem and a pipeline of new opportunities for existing funds. This diverse landscape of fund managers contributes to a robust, resilient venture capital environment in Quebec, providing entrepreneurs with a wide range of funding options and expertise to support their growth ambitions. We believe the province is well positioned to take a leadership role in emerging sectors such as artificial intelligence, clean technology, and life science. But let's not get too deep into it. Let's wait for the inputs from our panelists. As mentioned before, IQ is not only the financial arm of the provincial government, but it also acts as an institutional investor, mainly through our private equity program, as we aim to build strategic relationships with external fund managers and investment partners, leveraging their networks and sector expertise to source long-term investment opportunity. Our group invests in portfolio companies that demonstrate a strong market position, attractive cash flow profiles, resilience through economic cycles, and top-tier management team. It can execute complex transactions across the capital structure in various investment sizes and sectors. EQ's PE team is active across multiple asset classes, directly via venture capital from startup to post-startup in thriving and fertile sectors like ICT, green tech, life sciences, innovative industries. In SMBs across key sectors of our economies, agri-food, aerospace, natural resources, manufacturing, and IT. And in credit investments, where our team invests across the debt capital structure in the form of secured and syndicated loans, sub and junior debt, and indirectly via funds. IQ participates in more than 80 specialized funds, financing high potential business in a range of industries, while also providing support, mentoring services, and a network of contacts. These funds may come into play at the pre-seed, seed, startup, growth, or buyout stages in all sectors or in accordance with the government's main orientations. We support managers that invest locally, but also outside of the province or internationally. Assets under management for our funds portfolio is just over $2.1 billion, and we invest both under our equities activities or in the administration of programs or other mandates entrusted to us by the government. We hold a distinctive position within Quebec's ecosystem with a presence across all stages of the financing chain in every key sector driving economic development. Since 2005, our fund managers have financed more than 2,700 companies, with nearly 52% of them located in Quebec. We collect data and key metrics from these companies, enabling us to identify potential investments and support opportunities for our team or other Investissement Québec business line. Although our strategy is mainly to commit to funds in an indirect investment approach via partnerships with external managers, our principal strategy and mindset is closely aligned with direct investment principles as we actively support our partners in managing their growth and their respective firms. We take a value-added and hands-on approach, providing strategic guidance and resources to our external managers. This collective model allows us to maximize relationships, returns, and long-term growth across our portfolio while benefiting from the diversification and specialized knowledge offered by our general partners. Our 6 criteria investment approach is pragmatic and allows for transparent and durable relationships. If we go over them. So first one is impact, managers that can invest 1x our commitment or more in Quebec. Team, we want a boots on the ground approach, partners that are active in the ecosystem. Track record, managers that can generate risk-adjusted or superior returns. Governance, transparency, alignment of interest, and adherence to best practices in risk management and compliance. Complementarity, managers who collaborate with other market participants that are strategic to the financing chain and that can generate a pipeline of opportunities for our direct investment program. And firm, managers with a long-term vision, sustainability, and identify succession, and having the potential to become world-class managers, as we're not just investing in the last fund raised, but building multi-fund relationships. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our panelists, who will share their insights on market dynamics as they are both active in Quebec and across Canada. Their expertise will provide valuable perspectives on the complementary nature of Quebec's fund management ecosystem within the broader Canadian context. Éléonore Jarry-Ferron is a general partner at Brightspark Ventures, an active Canadian early-stage venture firm headquartered in Montreal with offices in Toronto and now Vancouver. An active participant in the local ecosystem, Éléonore co-founded Front Row Ventures 10 years ago and has long supported initiatives such as Canadian Women in VC and Technovation Challenge Girls Program. Éléonore recently came back from mat leave after having her first baby just a little over a year ago. Scott Loong is a partner at Panache Ventures, bringing a wealth of experience from his diverse career spanning entrepreneurship, venture capital, law, and mentorship. He is the co-founder of Covera, a fintech startup, and previously served as principal in EIR at First Capital Partners. Prior to his work at venture capital, Scott practiced as a corporate M&A lawyer at Gowlings. Scott Scott is an active contributor to the innovation ecosystem, serving as a mentor at District 3 Innovation and the Creative Disruption Lab.
Hi, Dany. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for
Pleasure
being
to
here.
be on the panel with you both.
So sorry, I'm just gonna shut down. So I invited you today because in addition to being an important part of our funds portfolio, you're both active in Quebec and the rest of Canada. So if we start with you, Éléonore, what would you say are unique challenges and advantages you have observed as a fund manager operating in Quebec's ecosystem versus other provinces?
And you did a really great presentation of the Quebec ecosystem. And as I was thinking about this question, a lot of our advantage can also be some challenges for us. So maybe like three unique traits that are, good and bad in a way that makes Quebec a very unique province and ecosystem in Canada. The first one that came to mind is definitely the landscape of public or government-backed organization that we have here. In September, we hosted the Kaufman Summit in Montreal with a lot of local partners, and having hundreds of international VCs come to Montreal and hear about our local ecosystem and the Canadian ecosystem. And that's the number one thing I heard the most from folks who didn't know about Montreal and Quebec as a venture capital ecosystem was how amazing it is to see this, like all these large organizations that are collaborating with each other. And I think for, fund manager having an LP ecosystem that you feel as intense and like strategically think always about where are the gaps, like, always making sure there is that chain of capital is great. And I think it means that we're surviving the crisis and that, there's a good foundation on which to build. The flip side of that, to the last few slides about the kind of, funds you want to back, I think always looking at different gaps, where I think in a situation where we might have a lot of emerging managers, a lot of strategies that change sometimes over the years. And I think it's just extremely important to build franchises. Like it takes 5, 10, sometimes 15 years to become a good VC. That's just the reality of the investment cycle. So making sure that we have folks who are there and are really taking a long-term approach in just the ecosystem and inside funds. Also think about succession and mentoring. I think we're really there as an ecosystem as something. And the other thing I think is just the uniqueness of our place. Like collaboration is so strong. I think it maybe ties back to the European bilingual ecosystem, like the fact that we have Espace CDPQ, again, a bunch of American VC come to Montreal and like, how does that work? You guys all in the same business, like building, but it works so well. Like it actually it's an amazing place. And I think that just comes with the culture of collaboration, but at the same time with a lot of collaboration, like very hard to find proprietary deal flow when, an entrepreneur walks in a room and meets all the other VCs. So I think that tension is like, I would say for sure more of an advantage than anything else, but also I think maybe can be seen as a quirkiness of our ecosystem.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning, I think that you mentioned 4 of our investment criteria. So great segue into your conversation. Scott, what will be your input on the unique challenges and advantages of operating in Quebec?
Yeah, I think a key aspect of it is that there's a very non-traditional approach by a lot of Quebec entrepreneurs. There is, I think, a tendency in a lot of other markets in Canada for everyone to sort of exhibit that very sort of, for lack of a better term, McKinsey polish or YC polish and so on. I think there's a lot of alpha to be had in this province because many of the founders, especially those outside the island of Montreal, don't necessarily have that same, I guess, cultural background, but they're still killers when it comes to entrepreneurship and innovation. There's a lot of fundamentals that are super enticing and interesting about investing in Quebec. We have a very deep pool of universities. We have research centers in those universities that are world-class. We have a pretty robust culture on the island of Montreal for supporting startups and outside in the region as well. And this has translated to great success in artificial intelligence and life sciences, clean tech, and some of the other things that you mentioned. maybe echoing a lot of the things that Éléonore said, adding one more would be, I think that we have the most robust angel investing ecosystem in Canada by far. I think that Ange Quebec is super strong, is super active, is willing to take risks. And unlike a lot of markets in Canada, they're unified. And that helps standardize processes. It helps the evolution of angel investing to resemble more closely the kinds of things that we do as venture investors. And I think that's healthy overall and not possible when you have these very sort of pocketed, disjointed groups of angels that exist elsewhere in the country.
Would the market benefit from having more angel networks in Quebec compared to what Ontario maybe has in their setup?
I think me and Éléonore are working on it, right? If we can get a couple companies to become unicorns, then all the middle managers become angels and all of the founders become super angels. And I think that's going to be the thing that we're both really looking forward to. And it feels like we're on the cusp.
Thank you. We continue with you, Scott. How does Panache balance their focus between regional investments and opportunities outside the province? Excuse me.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that all funds operating inside the province are ROI driven first and foremost, right? And there's certainly some degree of home country bias, I would say, which is normal in many regions. And I think what you'll typically see for funds operating in Quebec is that they'll have like a dual strategy where they'll commit some percentage of their committed capital to the province. Like historically, Panache has invested about a third of our fund in the province. And so even though we're not, as a fund, subject to very strict geographic restrictions, even if we were, we would have no problem meeting them because the amount of capital we've deployed in the province has always far exceeded the capital contributions from institutional investors. Mm-hmm. So, in general, I think it's less of an issue than sometimes is talked about outside of the province.
Yeah, no, what would be Brightspark's approach in terms of time spent here and then time spent in other provinces?
Obviously, our HQ is in Montreal, so like we always track like the deal flow we get across different provinces and our deal coverage, so the number of opportunities that we actually saw once they are announced. And like in Quebec, we have almost 100% coverage quarter after quarter because we've been here for a very long time. And in terms of investment, we're similar to Scott in the sense that we're there to maximize the returns on the fund. But historically, when we look at performance, like we always end up with 35 to 40% of our number of portfolio companies in Quebec. If you look return-wise, it's much higher than that coming from Quebec because of a certain group of entrepreneurs that are here. But at the same time, we would never commit to a restriction that we don't feel would alter investment thesis or potential performance. So we're very careful about that. And as we expanded into different geographies across Canada, when we have discussion with local provincial institutions about coming in the funds and their expectation, we want it to be crystal clear, make sure that we're doing it, that it's in line with our strategy, but it's 100% doable. And I encourage funds that are based outside of Quebec right now to consider it as an actual business strategy, not necessarily an aspect to could get LP capital in the province.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think the last thing we want to do is impose certain criteria because you guys are also diversified in terms of LPs on a Canadian basis. So that's a good point. We demand impact, so we want you guys to be active in the market, to foster and source transactions here, but never to impose minimal amounts. If we continue with you, Éléonore, what does the Quebec's cultural and economic diversity play in shaping investment strategies and fostering innovations in terms of fund management?
I think Quebec is unique for many reasons. Obviously, just the type of people we attract from, being a Francophone province in the first place. I think we get a talent pool that maybe choose to come here versus the rest of Canada for that reason. I think we've, maybe it's also because of that joie de vivre or and their kind of, we add in like artistically a lot of great like design companies, like hospitality, like we've seen like Lightspeed came out selling to restaurant first. Like, there's a lot of these companies that I think support maybe something that we do really well in Quebec. But at the same time, it's balanced with, as you mentioned earlier, Dany, like natural resources, mining is bigger. It is in many, obviously, provinces across Canada, but I think we're seeing like a very good sector split. Like there's not one industry that really comes out for me in technologies in Montreal. And we're like, because of, as Scott mentioned, like we have such a big university pool here. Like when we started French Ventures a few years back, like Montreal ranked second in North America after Boston in terms of the number of postgrad student per capita. And I think more and more now there's that connection, and some institutions are very involved also in making sure that we're like leveraging the IP and the entrepreneurs coming out of these universities and starting companies. So I think that makes it a very unique space. The challenge is really not being a closed ecosystem. And like we see this across Canada, but even more in Quebec, where you see like this great company, they reach like 500K of annual recurring revenue, and they all sell to Quebec-based companies. And they come to you, they want to raise money, but the pitch deck is in French, and it's obviously cannot turn them away and say come back with the pitch deck in English, where we speak in French with them. But that mindset of like being a winner in Quebec can really be challenging for some of these companies, and for us, partly because of that, it's great to see investors from other provinces get into deal syndicate with us as well. In Quebec-based company, people from Toronto, it just brings like sometimes just different perspective, a different network of potential customer and client, and build these companies out of Quebec. So I think that's how I read a bit our uniqueness in terms of how we think about making investment locally.
Thanks. Scott, how's the culture and economic diversity different for investments for Panache?
Yeah, I 100% agree with Éléonore's point about just like a certain flair for the Québécois. Like another example to add to the list is like the video game industry. We have a number of AAA gamers, gaming companies, as well as independent developers on the island of Montreal for sure. I think like one of the things that I can speak about is that the language dynamic in the province is something that definitely needs to be taken into consideration for GPs. Having said that, I'm an Anglophone Quebecer. I think every Quebecois would know from my accent when I speak French that I'm an Anglophone Quebecer. But like it has never slowed me down, nor has it really stopped anything. And my impression in general is that Quebec's efforts to protect the French language are often poorly understood outside of the province, and there is like an exaggerated perception of what the business implications are for companies, particularly in tech and particularly at pre-seed and seed. And so I think one of the challenges is that a lot of those perceptions and those conversations about this issue happen before we as Quebecers can get involved in the conversation and sort of shed light on the realities of doing business here. So I think, the way to understand Quebec is that, look, it is a French province, and most of our ecosystem does operate in French. And to get the most out of our province, it is important that you have French language capabilities inside the fund and for the boots on the ground that are here in Montreal. And it's worth it though. There is a lot of resources across the province. If you think about, like, I'll give a shout out to Quantaset, which is based in Sherbrooke, which is about an hour and a half south of Montreal. There's also the whole team at Lecan, Quebec City. We were there yesterday hanging out with them. Right? These are rich ecosystems that are worth developing as a fund. And in order to do so, you will need to have some French language capability.
Great. Thank you. We continue with you, Scott. Panache has offices in 4 provinces. How does Quebec's unique LP composition influence your investment strategy compared to what you have in other provinces?
Yeah, again, like we're trying to find the best companies as our number one priority, but I think Éléonore is completely right about how our ecosystem tends to be very relationship driven, and it raises eyebrows sometimes for US investors. Like a concrete example would be like last year, Panache and Inovia collaborated with Real Ventures to bring Founder Fuel back, which is a long-standing staple of our ecosystem here. And that's just something that reflects the style of doing business in Quebec. and how we do things here.
Éléonore, now that you have 3 offices.
Yeah, and we just finished raising a fund, and it's a best kind of diversified provincial LP based fund to date, and we really felt like maybe it's a factor of the people leading these organizations, or the fact that more and more we see these pan-Canadian funds, but like the level of collaboration between different provincial LPs across Canada is just getting very much stronger than maybe it was a few years ago, which is super appreciated as a GP. And something that we see kind of maybe trickle down in the mindset is, especially post-pandemic, like more and more of our portfolio companies, like sometimes we look at deal flow and we categorize everyone in provinces. It's hard to put them in one bucket because one founder is in Toronto, the other one is in Vancouver, the one is Montreal, or like the team is like founding team is in Toronto, but like they're investing like crazy in a AI team in Montreal. And we're seeing more and more of those kind of cross-provincial companies. And I think that this will be good for us as GP, will be good for the ecosystem, will be good for the LP base as well across Canada.
We're seeing the same thing on that front as well. Just to throw it in, like the last, I think, 3 deals we've done in the province have involved this either like senior salesperson elsewhere, tech team or product team based in Montreal. Like it is definitely becoming more common. We've seen that as well.
Thank you. Éléonore, Brightspark offers a differentiated investment model compared to other managers. Do you see a different interest for your products depending on the type of players and their geographic locations?
Maybe a bit for context, people are dialed in. So Brightspark, we raise and deploy more traditional VC institutional funds, but we also have a very large pool of smaller credit investors that invest with us either through a feeder in our main fund or through co-invest SPVs that we've been doing for almost 10 years now. And just in terms of numbers, so our latest fund is 100 million. Out of that, 18 million is pure family office and private investors, and 10 million of that 18 million is all check sizes under $1 million. So little, like as little as 200K, 100K. So that base of like pure private capital, when we launched this model, was like very heavily based in Ontario. We had maybe just around 15% of the private capital coming from Quebec, and now we're almost at 40%. And we see this in a lot of provinces where the initial pool of people really want to invest in Quebec-based company, and it's not necessarily there for performance or asset diversification, but really giving back, maybe similar to what you could see in some angel groups. But more now, like our Quebec investors are doing SPV in other provinces and vice versa, which is great because I think the one thing Canada needs is really to build a good private capital pool that is there for the long run and is there because the returns are there, and people really do believe that it's a great way to generate alpha for their portfolio. So we're seeing that increased appetite for private investment in Quebec. I think the one place where we still struggle is everything that's corporate, either through funds or like through proper like formalized CVC groups. Like we have lots of great companies across so many different industries. I'd love to see more of that collaboration between large industries here and in our VC ecosystem.
Is that the fact just for Quebec, or do you see that across Canada?
I think it's across Canada. I've focused more on that thought in Quebec because this is where I'm based. But we see a lot of like the families, like more family offices of those large, great like non-tech entrepreneurial families are getting active, but the companies themselves, maybe think of Pellerat Québécois obviously doing something great, but there's still very little of those groups that we see active.
Yeah. That's we're trying to put pressure on them to reinvest some of the credits they received over
Yes,
the
exactly.
years. Scott, has your investment model changed according to where you guys are fundraising or where you're investing in terms of
I think great question. We try to stay true to ourselves. We are a pre-seed and seed fund. It's what we know how to do very well. We're generalist investors. We know how to work with founders. A lot of the partnership team has been on the other side of the table and raised VC dollars as well, and therefore can I empathize. And I think that generally becomes our competitive advantage. I don't really feel that we should be adjusting our investment thesis according to demand from the LP side of things. We generally feel confident going to pitch LPs of all different kinds with just what our core capacity is, and if it fits into their portfolio, then that makes sense for them. But having said that, I think a lot of our investors, not just institutions, but some of our high net worths and family offices, are in part motivated by non-ROI or pure quantitative motivations. I think Quebec has a very resilient commitment to concepts of sustainability and diversity and inclusion. And I think in other markets that might ebb and flow more than it does in Quebec. But I think from the LP messaging that we receive, as well as just, I think if you take the temperature of the populace, on the streets of the Quebec City, you'll find a lot of support for that. And so, we have to remember that our mandate is created by our investors, right? And so to a degree, like what our job is to make the right investment decisions, but also when possible and to the greatest extent possible, deliver on those commitments as well to the things that are important to our LD base. And that's going to differ, but certainly there's some consistency in Quebec about more social awareness being embedded in the investment process at the earliest stages where we play.
Great, thank you to both of you. I don't know if there's questions in the queue, Stephanie. We may leave some time for maybe one or two questions.
Maybe one thing that we didn't cover that I find is interesting is, I think, Panache and Brightspark have, Quebec origin, and we're able to build mostly out west, but we're seeing more and more transition also of funds are coming in, especially at Espace CPQ. See the back there, Scott is in the office, and more and more we have funds that are really opening full-time team here with success. Thinking of Isaac at Pender Ventures, we're seeing those kind of franchise being built with people coming with boots on the ground, and I think that's really great to see, and I invite maybe more people to come. Like there's a lot of capital, but not enough, as always in Quebec and Montreal, and it's great to bring just different perspective and some kind of a different flair again to our ecosystem, and I think we are very welcoming.
Yeah, and you guys had a great part in doing that. You set a great example for other firms to set up in Montreal, and So thank you for both of you. In conclusion, while Quebec faces certain challenges in its investment climate, it also possesses unique strengths and opportunities. The province's focus on emerging managers while supporting existing one, and diverse investment strategy positions it as a dynamic player in the Canadian fund management landscape. So we believe the complementary nature of Quebec's ecosystem, combined with ambition, growth targets, and strategic priority, creates a compelling environment for investors and fund managers alike. As we move forward, Quebec's distinct approach to fund management will continue to play a crucial role in shaping Canada's investment future. So we're open for business.
Dany, sorry, I had not spoken in a few minutes. You had a question. Do you want me to play ad hoc moderator for you?
Oh, how do you think the Trump election will impact the Quebec ecosystem? That's a great question. Yeah. Scott, any insights?
Oh my God. I mean, I have no clue. I mean, I have a whole bunch of ideas, but I think I'm still sort of digesting the situation. And so I would rather not kind of just throw a dart at a wall and pick a position, because what I've personally come to understand about the administration is that you can never really know what's going to happen. Like we hear very, very worrying threats of tariffs and so on, but then do they materialize or not? And so it's a very hard challenge to try to like skate where the puck is going on this question.
Éléonore, you want to take it, chip at it? Or?
Yeah, and sadly, this is not our first time going through this, but I echo Scott, is like it's very volatile, so it's hard to know. But I think there will be impact, that is for sure. Like even Trump's claim on putting tariff in place. Like we had a few portfolio companies who like lost contract in the span of 48 hours because people were scared of if you're manufacturing anything concrete in here, like it may change. If you're one part of a bigger product and they see this as a supply chain risk, it can like impact companies in our stage. And I mean, just to show like we need very strong, resilient founders who can pivot and figure things out. And we have a lot of those in Canada, so I'm not too worried. And there's also always a potential flip side, like people coming here over the US, both for talent or for capital as well. There's a lot of conversation we had with Europeans in the past 2-3 weeks where like, this is too crazy, this is too volatile. Like if we're gonna try to do North America, Canada's much smaller in terms of market size, but we want to find a way to partner up north more than with Americans right now. So there's going to be definitely some downsides and definitely some upside to it.
Yeah, and that's why if I can just bridge on what IQ's role is as well, as to be patient in these situations and really be supportive of entrepreneurs.
And I'll add, maybe as a Canadian fund, like just the impact of FX rates.
Yeah.
On when you invest in a company in a US dollar entry price and you sell it the US and dollar, like in a few years, like just the swings can have really big impacts as well. So
that gives you a sense of what 2025 has in store for us. And I can say that conversations that CBCA is having with the federal government and how we've helped them over the fall build a bank of information in terms of the impact of investments in the US market, and now Canada is an ally and should be treated as such. But as you saw from Twitter yesterday, the unpredictability of what comes out or will come out of the White House will be something that will keep us on our toes. I have to say this was a wonderful conversation. As someone who's from Quebec, who I always feel welcome, but even my team says when we go to Quebec, there's something very special, and Espace des PQ is one of those places. But even when the community comes together, there's something very close-knit, and to see Quebec funds grow and Investissement Québec be part of that, and that footprint being expanded across the country, to me is a reflection of how this industry is growing, maturing, taking more scale, and reaching entrepreneurs and opportunities from coast to coast. And so to both of you who are investing, chapeau, and to Dany Belmonte and the entire team at Investissement Québec for that long-term view and that patient capital, without which this, when you're a tourist, it doesn't work. You need to stay the course and you need to be committed. So thank you so much for doing this with us. For those of you who are in Toronto or listening from Toronto, tomorrow is CBCA's final cocktail of the year, the holiday cocktail. I look forward to shaking your hand there. And if I don't have a chance to see you, to you, your families, Dany, Scott, and Éléonore, Merry Christmas. And if you celebrate Christmas, and happy holidays to everyone. Take this holiday season, take it as a chance to unplug, relax, recharge. There's no such thing as just burning the candle. Like you'll come back stronger from having gone away and spent time with yours and your family. So to everyone, thank you for joining. To Investissement Québec, a big thank you again, and we'll see you in 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one.